the amount of organic matter that plant has generated for this field block is amazing. And I want to show you a few things about cover crops. Okay, first of all, what we're going to do is dig in and look at what it looks like. Because it's been covered for all these months, it's really beautiful. And I want to show you a profile. So we're digging in. Oh, nice rock. And I want to show you this. This is amazing. You see here? These are the roots. And you have these round balls that are on the roots. These are bacteria that connect with the roots of the legume. Vetch is a legume. And these are called nodes. And these have the extraordinary capacity to take nitrogen that's from the sky and bring it down into the soil because of this symbiotic relationship with these nodes. It's really an amazing process, and it's because of that that we call them actually green manure. These cover crops that we use, when they're legumes, they can take the nitrogen that's in the sky again and bring it into the soil and fertilize and feed the soil that way. This is a super old process, and most organic farmers know about this. Regenerative farmers, people that are new to the movement, need to learn more about cover crops, green manure, rotations. Like, this is the tested, classic, tried and true way of farming. But you really see how these crops have populated, and you see nodes everywhere in the soil. It's just amazing. See how that's a really nice root system here? There's tons of them. And it's a really inexpensive way to feed your soil. It's just by growing these legumes that will do that. And a cover crop, legume or not, so legume are the only crops that can do that have this capacity, and sometimes these bacteria are not in the soil. So you can add an inoculum. Usually you buy it in the form of a powder. It's just something that you'll mix with your seeds when you plant, and just to make sure that you have these nodes. So that's something that you can add. Once they're there, though, they'll be there for as long as you're farming. So that's not an issue. But the other big benefit of growing a cover crop is that the root systems, you see them here, this is all going to be decomposed by the soil web, the living soil web in the soil. So it's going to be plant food, organic matter for all the macroorganisms, spiders, earthworms, like, everything that's in the soil. It's their food because it's organic matter that's decaying. And so to have cover crops that go with deep roots, you're feeding the bottom layer of your soil. You're feeding the ecology of your soil, but deeply. And that makes the big difference. Putting compost on top, doing the lasagna style, kind of feeding the soil, is also good because you'll have a lot of the micro animals, soil animals, coming up and taking the compost and bringing it down. But there's all these layers of horizons in the soil with a different ecology, and cover crops are really the only way to feed the bottom layer, and that's why they're important in the system. They take up planting space and planting time, so they're not lucrative in a way, but if they're put in a rotation and you have, let's say, a field block or a bed that has a cover crop 1 time out of 4, you're really good. You can really have a sweet spot that way. So that's what we do here. We'll have, a bed or a field block, depending on how we set up our rotation, that's going to be under cover crop 1 time out of 4. for 8 to 12 weeks. And that, in my experience, is enough to generate the benefits of the cover crops without having too much of the garden in cover crops. So how to deal with cover crops in a no-dig system? That's a big question. I've never said that I'm a no-till farm. I don't really believe in that kind of wording. We're definitely really sensitive to soil ecology, and we work with the ecology of our soils. But this being said, you want to have the organic matter that's on top incorporated into the soil. Most organic farmers, what they'll do is they'll mow it and then they'll plow it, or they'll till it in it with a rotor tiller. And that's good practice, because a lot of the best farms and farmers that I've seen and met, that's their program. They grow beautiful green manure cover crops, and then they till them in, and with their tractors they loosen up the soils, so they have amazing tilth. They have beautiful crop residues that are being digested in the soil, and they grow beautiful crops. That's not a no-till system, and it works. What we do here is we want to have the ecology of the soil digesting it. So what we'll do is we'll use a flail mower. We use a flail mower because it has knives that are cutting the long pieces of, all of this. It'll cut it in tiny, tiny, tiny parts. And in the end, we'll have just like this beautiful mulch that's going to digest much faster, because it's kind of like pre-cut, and it won't have the tendency to kind of stuff the tool that we use to kind of prepare the seed beds. So we'll mow it with a flail mower, and then we'll cover it with a black tarp, and we'll leave it for a couple of weeks, and that's going to leave enough leeway for the microorganisms to come and kind of digest it, chew it. It's going to terminate, destroy, kill the crop if you want, because there's no light. And so that's how we get rid of the cover crop. Then we'll either raise our beds if we need to or not. And then when we're ready after a couple of weeks, we'll do a broad fork, and we'll use the BCS again to shallowly prepare the seed bed, either with the power harrow or with the rotor tiller that has the roller in the back, the precision depth roller, so that we're just shallowly working the top few inch. And so that's the minimum tillage strategy that we've used for all these years. It really does a good job. But green manure, again, like, they're super amazing what they do, but how to turn this into something that's going to be easy to work on and to digest fast, that's where a tool like the flail mower is really, really essential. It's like, you can't do green manure in the market garden if you don't have a flail mower, in my opinion. Little side information, that's really cool. That's Lise. She's my apprentice for the season, and what she's doing now, she's harvesting that vetch, the top of the vetch, and we're serving it at the Old Mill restaurant this weekend. And we're explaining what I just did with you about the symbiotic relationship of plants and soil and atmospheric nitrogen. And we're serving green manure salad that Eric the chef is going to really nicely prepare. And so it's really cool what we're doing, because we're trying to explain why this is important, but we're feeding people. So it's a real cool tidbit. That's what's going on now. Lisa's amazing, by the way. This is her last week with me. She's been here for, I think, like 15 weeks, 14, 15 weeks. It's been a blast to be with her, so kudos to Lise. She's amazing. So before I put on the flail mower, I might show you what it is and how it operates. So if I flip it over, you see, so the flail mower has all these knives that are on a rotating shaft, and what this does is that it's going to chop everything that goes into the mower into really small pieces. And so that's really, instead of a lawnmower that would cut everything like at the bottom, and then you'd have these long pieces of you know, crop residues, green manures, whatever, like whatever's in the mower. It would just kind of chop it and then have long pieces. This turns whatever's growing in the garden into amazing mulch. And that's really the power of this tool. And flail mowers are heavy duty. The ones for BCS, they'll last for a lifetime, as long as you maintain these knives, which are easy to unscrew and put back. You can just buy new knives when these gets used. It's definitely a tool that's 100% worthwhile. It's a good investment. And again, like the other alternative, I would say, if you're not equipped with a two-wheel tractor, would be to perhaps have a weed whacker and just kind of zigzag, try to cut everything into pieces, but that's a lot of work, and the result will never be the same as you'll get with a flail mower. And you'll see, this is a pretty thick cover crop. You'll see when we're done, what it does is really amazing. So I'm going to connect it. We're going to adjust the height also. This model here is really nice because you can adjust the depth of the knives. And sometimes I really want to go close to the bottom, or even sometimes I want to touch the soil with my knives, so that I'm really sure that I'm not just flattening out the cover crop. I'm really mulching and, you know, mowing, shredding it all. So I'll go deep and I'll adjust it later on, but that's a really nice feature from this one, is that you can do that. So now we're going to connect it, and then we're going to start mowing the cover crop. So we're done. Does an amazing job. If you want to see more about why I'm such enamored with the BCS, you can check out this video. Otherwise, hope things are growing where you are. I'm good. I'll see you next time. JM out.